армысыздар, құрметті қонақтар.
Hello, dear guests, dear participants of the forum. Good morning, dear guests. Welcome to our panel session. The topic of our panel session is investments in energy, smart grid technology for a sustainable future. I'm glad to greet all of our participants. I hope that today we are going to receive interesting information, beneficial opinions, and good discussions. First of all, let me present our speakers. The Chairman of the Committee for Regulating the Natural Monopolies of the Ministry of National Economy of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Mr. Darbayev Asan Kabentayevich. Consultant for Energy of the Asian Development Bank, Mukatov Bekshan Batyrovich. Managing Director for Strategy, System Development and Digital Transformation of KEGOK, JC Konakbayeva Elvira Bakhitovna. Managing Director for Economics and Finance of Samruk Energy, JC Ruskulov Aydar Kairatovich. Also, online, we have speakers from Switzerland, the head of the Division of Clean Energy and Digitization of the World Economic Forum, Ms. Kristen Panarali, and the Chief Specialist of the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, Mr. Grenad Laleh. He is connected from London. We are grateful for our colleagues for joining us today despite the significant time difference. I thank all the speakers for the time dedicated. My name is Bakhajan Ilyas. I'm head of the Kazakh Association of Digital Energy. My task today is to moderate this very panel session, to conduct a harmonized discussion and to maintain the order and schedule. Before us getting to the panel sessions discussions, I would like just to mention a few words on behalf of the organizers and sponsors. On your badges, you have QR codes that would lead you to the AIFC's Telegram channels, where else you can get beneficial, useful information and material about the conference, panel sessions, photos. Also, we thank our sponsors for cooperation and support. Our golden sponsors of our conference: Visa Company, Freedom Holding Corp, and ITS Company. Before getting to the first floor, I would like to speak about what were prerequisites for having this very panel session. The first prerequisite was the systematic crisis in the electricity system, the high wear and tear of the infrastructure, the electric infrastructure of the country, the current tariff policy, investment policy, as well as Kazakhstan's international obligations in terms of decarbonization within the Paris Agreement. The second prerequisite is to establish a technological consortium last year, the consortium of Industry 4.0, based on the Tech Hub's grounds. That's a subordinate organization of the IFC that's affiliated with Industry 4.0 Center of the World Economic Forum. It is also about the plans and perspectives of this very consortium with the Ministry of Energy in terms of developing the smart grid technology. The third prerequisite is the acute necessity to cooperate between all the stakeholders so as to exchange expert opinions. That's about the cooperation with the local experts, energy companies, experts, so as to get out of the crisis. Basically, we count on discussing the challenges and opportunities related to drawing investments in such an energy transition period for Kazakhstan. Dear participants, today I'm glad to present our first speaker, Mr. Darbayev Asan Kabentayevich. He is the chairman of the Committee for Regulating Natural Monopolies. He agreed to speak about the plans of the state regulator, about mechanisms and tools in terms of oil to investments mechanism. Mr. Hassan, the floor is yours. Dear participants, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for hosting this very platform and for the opportunity in general to present the activities of the tariffs regulators. I would like to wish all the participants and delegates a fruitful work. Let me briefly present about the respective policy in natural monopolies. Briefly, that's about utilities, housing, municipal lines are a very relevant issue now. Let me start with the major tasks. The tasks are pretty much relevant. That's about securing the balance between the consumers as well as natural monopolies. Here we have probably two components. The first one is about the necessity to focus on certain possibilities of the consumers. Since we speak about the end-user tariffs, all of us are consumers with the respective tariffs, and each and every consumer has respective possibilities. And in terms of the national monopolies, that's about the infrastructure first and foremost. That's about to secure certain investments volumes so as to maintain and observe quality services, including some gradual activities for modernizing infrastructure. Also, one of the major tasks is about the respective inflation-related activities, since the utilities, housing industries, they provide with multiplying factors for other industries. They are in the respective indicator for inflation, and that's done at the level of the ministry. Also, there are such kind of things like not having the respective unjustified expenditures, since there should be a clear cost for each and every service. Also, one of the major directions is to secure rights and interests of the consumers, since we have lots of different claims, demands in terms of recalculating the respective pay bills, different things, and here we should protect the rights of the consumers first and foremost. Briefly, we wanted here to mention that we have the respective legislation. It was updated in full in 2019. Also, we have the respective regulatory acts. Now, the natural monopolies are regulated by 12 regulatory acts. Here, an important thing is that why is the committee under the Ministry of National Economy? The committee has a function of the economic regulator, and now being within the Ministry of National Economy secures with independence, and it plays a role of an independent regulator. It doesn't have any linkage to any industry. That's a very important aspect. I would like to stress on that. The regulations are provided by the respective formation and approval of the tariffs first and foremost, the selection and definition of the methods for the tariffs, the registry, natural monopolies, activities. The world practice implies that natural monopolies are to be strictly regulated from all the respective matters. In all the respective matters, that's about the target use of the expenditures of the users. The natural monopolies annually report, and we have a pretty rigid control not only on behalf of the committee but in terms of the local municipalities, authorities, and the respective industry-wide agencies. Here we would like to tell about how the costs are formed. There are many factors that influence costs. Here we should understand first and foremost that those are industrial entities, and there are many aspects that require analysis, substitution of equipment, and other points. If we to divide the matter into the respective factors that affect the costs, there we have regulated factors, the annual increase for commercial gas prices, the increase for the respective tariffs in the electricity generators activities, the rates for railroad transportation, increase in payments to state authorities. The costs are based on the market principles. Respectively, we don't have any state regulations. It is up to the market setting the prices. That's about for commodities like coal. It is one of the strategic goods, the heavy fuel oil and petrol prices. In terms of the fixed assets, a very important point is that some equipment, pipes, they are imported. That's why we focus on the prices with other countries. The paycheck, the headcount remuneration, that's definitely a big deal. Many people are engaged all across the country. Those are industry-specific professionals. More than 300,000 people work in the respective areas. It is also about the power generation industry. It has a significant influence. Besides that, we have the railroad services, tariffs and rates. It has a significant influence. It's regulated, respectively. Here on this slide, I would like to stress on that there was a number of instructions from the head of state about the necessity to provide with a respective system of tariff for investments at the level of the government. A respective program was adopted. Here it consists of two major directions: the preparatory works, the preparatory of the regulatory base, and practical implementation. In terms of organizational preparatory activities, we have the following actions planned: the investments into the infrastructure, fixed assets, the audit of electricity generators and stations. Given the current data, the ministers finalized the activities. We had experts drew. That's about the strengthening of the controls in terms of the electricity industry, having more accountability of the national monopolies, including the activities related to the procurement. In the practical implementation, we had the increase of the maximum tariffs, increase of the annual return of the funds in the electricity industry, the international experience within the cooperation with the World Bank. The World Bank works out a direction that's available in the world practice. Those are two methods: the cost-based and the incentives-based. The costs-based system, in principle, has been applied since 1990s. Maybe in the near future we're going to have the new incentives-based system. It has different approaches, but we have certain perspectives with that. Also, it is necessary to secure conducting quality awareness campaign in terms of the tariffs reform.
Because any reform and attracting investment is impact on the final price, and this shall be explained to the consumer how the tariffs are changing and why. Electronic passportization of the assets, digitalization of the companies through database of monopolies. Monopolies databases is a database that started in 2019. It has number of positive functionality. Everything is digitalized, and in this database, a monopolist is shown. Any consumer has access and can study the financial and economic activity of any company. All legal grounds are prepared to change tariffs and to increase the investment programs. One of the key issues is salary for the production team. It is changing in all sectors, adjusted. We believe it will increase the prestige of working in the utility service, will retain staff, prevent brain drain, and utility service companies will have experienced people. As a result, repairment activity and the modernization is done jointly with the local authorities. There is a batch of the applications now to conduct repairing activity, modernizing and revamping. We believe it will help with the depreciation and the losses and the leakages. Those two things will be directly impacting the quality of the service. Another point that was addressed legally, there are municipal and some networks and the grids without owners. Our cities are developing, additional facilities are building, engineering network is built either on account of the municipal or commercial owners, and in the future these networks will be supervised by the authorized organization. It will help to make them more reliable and will impact our consumers, attracting investments to repairment of the engineering networks. Depreciation is expected up to 2%, increasing remuneration salaries, digitalization analysis of the assets, and the informational and raising awareness activity with the population. On energy, I will make a separate focus. Today, the chain of production and marketing is split between Ministry of Energy, which is responsible for production and generation and decreasing shortage, and Ministry of National Economy, represented by the committee, provides transportation and the transfer in the structure of the price. 60% is the share of production and 40% is transfer and dissemination. On digitalization, we have 100% digitalization with the consumers. The share of the energy transferring organization, 30% is investment, 30% is salaries in the structure. I mentioned about the database of the monopolies. Last year we modernized. All invoices are electronic. Other consumers have access to it. In parallel, on the responsibility and the liability, you can see on the slide there is a share of investment that is attracted annually, and a certain amount when the execution is not done fully. Last year it was 44 billion tenge. So we need to do some more work on management. Thank you for the detailed report. Colleagues, after panel session, we have a conference room booked, Sydney, and you can ask more questions and ask them in another format. Let's leave all questions for the later period. Otherwise, we won't be able to hear all speakers. Our next speaker is Kristen Paranali. She will tell us about the system values when making decisions and also investment into the energy system. Panarali, Mrs. Panarali, the floor is yours.
Hi, thank you very much for this invitation. It's really important, the work that you're doing in Kazakhstan, the investments in the energy transition and reforms and modernization, et cetera. So thank you very much for including me here. Here at the World Economic Forum, we are the international organization for public and private cooperation. And from our perspective, the North Star of the clean energy transition is really about taking action and implementing solutions that are addressing three dimensions: energy security and resilience, an affordable and just system, and sustainability and climate impact. Now, I'm going to share with you 2 points today. First, that there is an urgency to direct investments into the energy transition. And second, that these investments in this path to a net zero future, especially those investments in policies that are focused on the grid and utilities, can really deliver broad value. So first, on the urgency, there is a climate crisis globally, and change needs to happen quickly. Otherwise, the consequences for the global economy and our climate will be dire. So there's very important milestones just around the corner. First of all, that clean power should increase 3 times by 2030 and 9 times by 2050. And that means that we also need a 3-time increase in transfer capacity. So this is when grids and networks become really important. And so that investment in the modernization of the grid is going to become really critical as the share of electrification in the energy system goes from 20% globally. So 20% of end use is electrified right now, and that's going to increase to 50% plus by 2050. So this is when heating becomes more efficient and potentially electrified. This is when we move towards more electric vehicles, et cetera. So the grid is going to really be the backbone and super important to meet these milestones at a global level. And the second point that I want to make today is that we have an opportunity to reframe the energy transition solutions and look at them as a way to create system value. So what I mean by system value is value to the economy, to the environment, and to society. So the forum, the World Economic Forum, and some stakeholders, we created what's called a system value framework. And put simply, this framework aims to shift both political and government decisions, as well as business and commercial decision-making, from focusing solely on cost to looking at the broader value that solution can deliver. So in other words, policy decisions or investment decisions can be evaluated on the broader value that it might deliver to the economy. So perhaps in the form of jobs, or to society. So in the form of better air quality and thus better health. And there can be measurable savings in the health system as a result. To the environment in the form of reduced emissions, and to the energy system in the form of more flexibility. So we've done an analysis in several markets around the world. And the first thing that we do is look at the desired outcomes. So looking at the country, does the energy system need to be more reliable? Or does the economy need more investment and jobs? Or is emissions reduction the goal? Then, based on those desired outcomes, we can backtrack into the solutions that can deliver those outcomes. And what we found, and I thank you for putting up that slide, what we found is that there's a path of solutions to a net zero future. And this path also helps to maximize value to society, to the environment, to the economy, and the energy system. And in this path, so it starts on the left side where you've got the basic foundational elements of the electricity sector transition. In the middle, it's the transformational phase. So this happens when electricity generation mix hits 20 to 30% annual variable renewables. So that's when you've got a lot of wind and solar in your electricity system. And then to the right, that is the end goal, an integrated net zero energy system. And there's integrations and strategic links there that are connecting energy system with transport, with industry, and with heating. And that's when you also have high levels of zero carbon electricity. So no matter which market you're in, there's several no regrets actions, and that is energy efficiency improvements across the system, expanding renewables such as wind and solar, and enhancing grid capabilities and interconnections. And you can see that on the left, those are the 3 no regret solutions, and they continue throughout the transition with increased levels of digitalization and efficiency. So all of these are solutions that you can actually measure. And if there's time later, I can share more on this analysis, because we looked at Brazil, which also did quite a bit of investment in smart grids, et cetera. And you can really, in that analysis, we were able to see the measurable value that could be an outcome. So I just wanted to leave you with this consideration about how energy transition investments, particularly those in the grid, and beyond, can really play a much broader role in creating holistic value across the economy, the environment, and society at large. Thank you.
Спасибо, госпожа.
Thank you, Ms. Panerale. Your global experience of the World Economic Forum is very valuable to us. We look forward to working with you through affiliated center of the fourth industrial revolution that was created in the hub. We completely agree that we shall not invest into something before we understand its strategic significance, strategic result and impact. Now, in the energy sector, there are long-term strategies, and all of these concepts, I hope, will be embedded into these strategies, and we will conduct a separate round table, hopefully, to look at your experience in more detail. Thank you. Dear participants, please take note of your questions. Once we have QA session, we'll discuss it here or in a separate conference room. Now, let me give floor to the next speaker, Mukatov Bigjan Batyrovich, who is a consultant on energy of the ADB. He is also a professional in mathematic modeling, PhD of the science. Hello, dear participants. I would like to inform you on the Asian Development Bank's activity in smart grids. Undoubtedly, bank pays much attention to digitalization as a whole in the energy with the support of the ADB. The strategy was developed, inventory, a so-called smart grid project, which is now with the Ministry of the Energy. Smart grid is the very wide notion without a specific definition, but all understand that smart grid's important element is smart metering. Smart metering is a system of measuring electricity that would help to decrease and reduce the energy losses in transfer, and there will be less commercial losses. There is also smart metering helps to optimize the modes, the flows, generation, and this will in turn lead to the reduced losses and maybe even reduced consumption of the energy. Second is better reliability. Once system is better observed at all levels, visible, you can automatically control it. Thus, you can quickly identify some emergency situations when there are shutdowns. And third, reduced cost. A good example is reduced cost to go and take a record of the metering. Reduce losses would also help to postpone a new generation in electric grid. You have certain time lag thanks to a better control. And since there is reduced consumption, there is a reduced generation and reduced CO2 emissions and other harmful substances from the environmentally non-clean plants. What are the advantages for the grid? For example, there are network which is not loaded fully, and once you can see them, you can load them up to nominal values and avoid situations when they will be overloaded. Overall, you can do the consumers cleaner and more conscious. There are certain indicators, for example, frequency and length of the shutdowns. This is one of the indicators that should be taken into account when you make the decisions on generation or on the development of the grids. Consumer is a key player, key component of the energy system. All is done for the sake and around this consumer. Therefore, we shall be ruled how it impacts the consumer. Overall, smart grid allows, additional to all these mentioned advantages, to develop certain peculiarities, properties that are actively discussed. It's vitality and resilience of the energy system, such as self-rehabilitation, self-identification of certain problem and risks, engage consumers or other stakeholders that are not part of the system now. Smart grid and smart metering would help to engage more stakeholders and observe the pattern of their behavior and communicate with them. For Kazakhstan, there is a problem with the deficiency, shortage of the maneuvering capacities. We have ambitious plans on development of the renewables, and there is shortage of the maneuvering generation. This is one of the main barriers to increase the renewable share. Smart grid could be an answer. With the supporting services, it can engage new participants and there will be more flexibility. And we, as retailers, as retail consumers, we can take part in this regulation and we can increase the consumption or reduce the consumption if it is following the example of the North Europe, Scandinavian countries, when consumers themselves, they impact and affect the energy system positively by changing their behavior. And it also helps to develop the renewables. Thank you. Thank you. There are many questions to your bank and to European Development Bank, but now we are somewhat in a hurry for all speakers to have their say. Therefore, I would like to give floor to Ninat Lale, who is an expert from European Bank of Development and Reconstruction. He has wide experience in international infrastructural projects, and he will share what initiatives and projects are in Kazakhstan. Mr. Lale, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, all. Many thanks for inviting me for this conference. Uh, really appreciate from EBRD, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development side of things. Today, I would like to give a small presentation about EBRD's activities in energy sector, including smart grids. I hope you can see my shared screen. Can I check with someone? Uh, can I check with someone who, if you can see the screen in the room?
Пока еще не видно. Сейчас, секунду.
I think I've tried to share the screen, but
Hello. No, we cannot see your screen share. Can you share like your PowerPoint with us?
yeah. Is it?
Yeah, now we can see it.
Can you see it now? Okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay. No, thanks. Thanks for giving this opportunity again. So, European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, as many of you know, but just a small brief recap. So we were established in 1991. We have got extensive operations in Kazakhstan and Central Asia. EBRD is owned by about 71 countries. We've got a capital base of 30 billion euros, and we have had consistent AAA ratings from the main rating agencies such as Standard and Poor, Moody's, and Fitch. Our countries of operation extend over 30 countries, so that includes Central Asia, of course, but also to the Eastern Europe up till Northern Africa. In EBRD's energy sector, so we are part of Sustainable Infrastructure Group, and we have been investing since 1991. So until now, approximately we have invested about 18.7 billion in energy sector with over 427 projects. The share for Central Asia you can see on the screen, so it would be somewhere around 14% of the whole investment that we have done up till now. Going into some sort of specifics, so EBRD energy investments covers electricity generations, transmission, distribution, storage, and natural gas infrastructure. We are extensively right now working on some digital transformation programs in terms of electricity transmission. So loss reduction programs, demand side management programs, and more innovative ways of excelling operational performance for the grids. Since 1991, as of December 2022, EBRD has overall invested about 180.4 billion euros in 6,603 projects as an overall investment in all the sectors. And an average, we are investing about 1.8 billion euros per annum alone in power and energy sector. The cumulative EBRD financing in the energy sector since 1991 reached to approximately 20.5 billion euros by December 2022. In the last 5 years, so annual power and energy investments exceeded 1 billion euros, and renewable energy generation projects accounted for at least half of it. In the remaining investments that goes into transmission and distribution, we are looking into a lot more digital investments, something like smart meters, digitalizing the grid in general, digitalizing the substations, implementation of IEC 61850, or automated metering infrastructure, and so on. Our flagship programs in the renewables are all across our countries of operation. We have got about 12 gigawatt of renewable capacity finals in 2022. and we have been extensively working in Central Asia currently. Our operational approach is not limited to only lending money or in terms of investment, but we also get engaged into policy dialogue and technical cooperation to assist our countries of operation to implement all the programs successfully, and also to monitor these programs post implementation for to assess the impacts that is going to cause with these investment programs. Especially talking about Kazakhstan, so EBRD's policy engagement on decarbonization of energy sector in Kazakhstan, I think we started in 2008 by assisting in the development of sustainable energy action plan. Since then, we have been continuously working with government of Kazakhstan and the transmission and the grid owners to to uh, to to formulate the policy, to design the policy for the future for sustainable energy growth. We have been engaged into modeling of social impact of renewable energy feed-in tariffs, PPA bankability, gender equality, carbon market developments, and very recently we were engaged into implementation of wind auctions in Kazakhstan. Our EBRD investments in Kazakhstan between 2015 to 2022, especially in renewables, you can see on the map, and we have got about 788 megawatt of renewable capacity we have invested and going forward. The Green Economic Financing Facility for Kazakhstan. So we have successfully implemented about 30 million US dollars. And the second phase is approved for about 150 million, supporting low carbon and resilient economy. We have our local presence in Kazakhstan. EBRD's advice for small businesses all across 17 regions. ASB is promoting Green Economic Financing Facility Toolkit among small to medium enterprises and PFIs. Joint visibility events with bank center credits and entrepreneurship development fund. These are the two partners that we offer our credit lines to. And ASB team is strengthening communication with SME beneficiaries along with our partners. We are also assisting green economic financing facility implementation with first-hand local knowledge and beneficiaries of the program. In addition to the financing or lending activity, we also assess extensively the impact that is going to cause by our investments. So usually we assess this on the scale of these 6 transition qualities. So we try to tag these transition qualities to every investment and currently focused on green and resilient in Kazakhstan. In addition to our transition qualities, EBRD is also currently focusing on digital approach. So EBRD's digital approach, so accelerating the digital transition, is one of the 3 cross-cutting themes of the bank's strategic and capital framework. In November 2021, we adopted EBRD's digital approach paper. The paper defines how the bank will launch comprehensive and coherent activities that help countries leverage digital technology.
Господин Лале, я извиняюсь.
Mr. Lale, I'm sorry. Excuse me, I have to interrupt you since we are just left with less than 10 minutes for the session and we still have some speakers. That's why, if I may, I would like to summarize. Definitely, the EBRD and the ADB are today key donors in the projects of the energy transition, and we know that just recently we had a co-financing project by the 2 banks for the serious infrastructure project of Samarkand Energy. Thank you very much for your informative speech, time dedicated. I think definitely in the future we'll meet with you in other panel sessions, roundtables. Thank you for your report. Dear colleagues, taking into account the schedule, I would like to give the floor to our next speaker, Ms. Qonaqbay Elvira, She is Managing Director for Sustainable Development Strategy and Digital Transformation of Kiagok JC. She is now a most reputable voice in matters of sustainable development and digital energy. Ms. Elvira, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, Bakajan. You're flattering. You're flattering. Dear participants of the session, dear guests, I'm glad to greet you. As the moderator told, indeed, the investments in the energy industry are very much relevant for the whole industry, and we all excellently know that the development of the sector, providing its reliability, enhancing the grid manageability of that, require investments. Meanwhile, as we already noted, we have the high wear and tear of the equipment, and that definitely requires the modernization of the facilities. Now I would like to share with the smart grid technologies of KEGOC that it manages as the single grid operator for the energy industry of Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan has a long-term development strategy. It sets the vision, mission, strategic goals and aims for the 10-year period, and respectively, it takes into account all the global trends, decarbonization. But the key accent here I would like to have is about digitization within the strategic goals, so as to secure the respective energy grid of Kazakhstan, especially given the energy transition, as well as introduction of state-of-the-art technologies, digital technologies. The smart grid program are key priorities for the strategy for the coming 10 years. We studied the activities and the experiences of smart grid. There was a project with the EBRD and other companies. We came to a conclusion that the smart grid notions are different in different countries, and they have their own notions in their own way. They understand based on the current topology and their own infrastructure and market conditions for the energy system of Kazakhstan. It was suggested to have the intellectual energy system as a full-fledged integrated system that's self-supporting, self-reliant, that has a network topology and that incorporates all the generating sources, main lines, the distribution centers, networks, and all the consumers types that are managed by the single system in real time. In general, next slide please. The introduction of smart grid, oh you can see it. The introduction of smart grid should lead, here we go, excuse me. The introduction of smart grid should lead to the change in the management of the energy industry, given the energy policy based on data. The data-based approach is going to be there. We are going to have a risk-based approach, as well as tariff regulations based on reliability and satisfaction of the clients. The smart grid concept that was developed by the authority together with the ADB, they set the respective benefits. Bigjan mentioned some of them. In the end, the introduction of all the system would lead to the development of the market, the development of the new services, the decrease in costs in general, the decrease in the respective electricity losses, as well as the development of the renewable energy sources. On the next slide, we have the current situation around. They introduced the current and prospective projects of smart grid and energy industry that's divided into sectors: generation, transmission through the main lines, the distribution through the regional lines, the sales, and the consumption by the consumers. So as for the smart grid to work properly, each and every sector should possess respective technological, informative IT systems that would be integrated in one database processing system. That what Bekshan mentioned in terms of the matrix. In the future, the Ministry of Energy, as the respective authority, is going to see all the respective data in the energy industry in real time. In our view, now at the moment, we require to have the investments attracted to energy industry, since that's the most developed sector. Also, we should take into account the wear and tear of our fixed assets, since the introduction of the digitization on the worn and torn equipment, first of all, is about irrational and useless waste of time and money. On the last slide, I would like just to demonstrate the elements of the smart grid that KEGOC has been introducing for 5 years. That's SWAC system for monitoring and managing based on the synchro hazards technologies, the centralized anti-emergency system, the automated regulation of frequency in power system. So we just recently have started with the modernization of the dispatching system, SCADA MS, and we are extending the respective part into the stage 2. Besides that, definitely we use and introduce other intellectual systems of the so-called Industry 4.0 about microprocessing, relay protection system, the SCADA itself that we introduced, as well as the automated system of the commercial calculation, the meters, simply. That's all done for more reliability, transparency, the sustainability of the energy system of our country. We are going to work further in that regard. Thank you for your attention. Ms. Elvira, thank you for your report. Indeed, KEGOC is a flagship of the digital transformation. It has the status that possesses the respective responsibility. The next speaker is Raskulov Aidar Kairatovic. He is Managing Director for Economics and Finance of Samruk Energy. He has lots of background in working in the banking industry. Mr. Aidar, the floor is yours. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. Take into account that that's the last speech. I'm not going to be too long. I just would like to tell about what we do in the light of the most recent events. Indeed, we deal with the ecology, we approved the strategy, we approved the energy transition program. In fact, around 5 years ago, we even didn't discuss when we are going to remove the respective coal stations. In principle, in terms of the decarbonization, we incorporated that into our plans. We can see some of the matters now. If to speak about certain projects, we already mentioned that indeed we implement big projects in Almaty together with the ADB and the EBRD. Almaty TETS 2 and TETS 3 are moved to the gas-based generation. The significant changes are going to be there. The progress is ongoing in terms of the smart grid. That's related to the renewable energy sources. As you know, Kazakhstan signed lots of agreements, I think worth of 6 gigawatt hours in terms of the agreements. We have a big target, so as to have 15% of renewables or 30 maybe percent in the respective breakdown. In our program, we also plan to have the respective decrease of 30% in CO2s in comparison to 2021 due to the significant increase in the renewable energy sources. For that, we came up with Kazakh Green Power, our subsidiary. The main mandate of the company is to develop the renewable energy sources to become a tool of the state in implementing the large-scale projects. As my colleague from KEGOC mentioned, that's a huge challenge for the energy system. That's why there is no introduction of the self-balancing regional set of activities. That's not possible. That's why we need to develop the respective supply scheme. We have Almaty-based company AJK. We are fighting against the wear and tear. We increase the respective tariffs. Meanwhile, so far, it's not at all about the digitization, the smart grid, but definitely we have that in our perspectives. That definitely up to the respective tariffs. There are many potential projects in terms of the coal-based generation. At any rate, we develop it as a based one at the current stage. In terms of decarbonization, we plan to implement projects based on the clean coal generation. They are going to be much better even the ones in Europe, for example. We work with international institutions. We don't put that meanwhile on the agenda. We are nevertheless in search of financing, and we are in search of certain combined decisions in terms of the renewable energy sources. In a nutshell, I'm over. I'm not going to take your time anymore. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dear colleagues, availing of this opportunity of being a moderator, I just would like to ask one question. There are many questions, but the most important question, Mr. Asan, is more into your side. There have been many different critical matters from the MPs in particular that we have already the experience in terms of the tariff for investments in the past, and what's going to be the difference of the program that we have now in comparison to that? Did we have any homework? Just in a few words. The practice of 2009, 2015, the focus there was about the generation of electricity. The experts differ in their opinions. Some of them are positive and some of them are negative. Definitely, flaws are always there. To err is human. We had very close activities with experts on different platforms, industry-wide platforms with the Ministry of Energy. Now we have two directions incorporated in here. The generation, first of all, the major things are going to be within the respective power capacity market, as well as the second important point is going to be the transparency and control. That's a key matter, that the pricing, the formation of prices and the obligations that the stations take onto themselves, all the information pertaining to them would be wide and available. The second direction is about the grids, the natural monopolies. Here we also have lots of activities conducted, starting from the utilities all the way to remuneration, the audit of the wear and tear. I think in general, all in all, the activities are going to provide with their outcomes. The deficiencies are there, but given your support, we can come up with roundtables, platforms to discuss all the things. Thank you. We have heard in your presentation, we have heard about the respective digitization tools and the regulators' activities, and that's why we hope that the tariff applications from the energy entities would be approved in terms of the smart grid, the digitization matters. We all understand that the digitization would secure transparency in investment programs on the side of the monopolies. Dear participants, unfortunately, taking into account that we have the limitations, the time limitations, we have to close our activities. We try to gather up all the key players, the largest energy producing company, the regulator, the key donors, the state regulators. I hope that our discussions, the information that you have received would be of benefit. I would like to remind that we can proceed to the conference room Sydney for continuing with much more personal communications and to have the respective questions and answers. Thank you for your attention, for your participation. Thank you, dear speakers.